Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Brandon here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Bassett, and he's selling his display advertising and Amazon Associates business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. So welcome to the show, Bassett, and how are you doing today?
Hi, Brandon. Hope you're well. Yeah, everything's cool here.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really great to have you on the call today and speak to you about this business you've created. But before we get into the details and a little bit about your background, let's give a general overview of the business. So it is a display advertising and Amazon Associates business in the kitchenware niche created in June 2018. The average monthly revenue for the business is $2,911 and makes an average of $2,900 per month in net profit. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 51074 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that I've given a general overview of the business, what's included in the sale is the domain and all site content and files, and social media accounts for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So Bassett, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, sure. I actually work full-time elsewhere, but this was something I just took as a bit of a hobby, really. And it kind of developed over the last couple of years where I was building and adding content to the site. And it kind of got to a stage where I was quite happy with it. Obviously, in terms of time, I don't necessarily have much of that. So it's kind of a case of, okay, let's just make things a bit more efficient and move some things on.
Okay, that's really awesome. Now, where did you get the idea to start this business? Was it through just some research that you had done on building or growing content sites in the past?
Partly it was down to research, but some of it was actually down to family where they had a strong interest in this area. So I'd seen it over the years. So I thought, yeah, this is actually quite a decent area to go into. And obviously, when you're building a site, you have to have some level of interest. Otherwise, it's difficult for you to maintain it. So I was quite comfortable and quite happy in this niche.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree with you 100%. Now, I've noticed in the breakdown of this business that you have both display advertising and Amazon Associates. Now, which one of these monetizations is generating the most revenue for the business at this time?
So it said that display ads because of the amount of page views. And actually within that niche, the RPMs are actually quite high because of where the majority of the audience is.
Okay, that's really interesting to see. Now, why choose this specific business model and not go after something like a drop shipping model or maybe even e-commerce with your experience?
This one was the most efficient. And obviously with the kind of website as well is the one that takes the least of my time as well. I mean, it was just a natural fit, really.
Okay, gotcha. Now, I know you had already answered my next question as far as why you chose to go into the kitchenware niche, but was there other niches that you were looking at prior to venturing into this specific niche?
I do have a few other sites because what I tend to do is start building a site and then leave it for a while and then come back to it and really build on it, obviously, because you're probably aware Google takes some time to start giving you some traffic. So that's the kind of process I've taken over the last few years. So yeah, I do have some other sites, but obviously other people do too as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes sense as well, having your hands and waiting for the content sites to get out of the Google sandbox, as they call it. And,
exactly,
it does take some time. Okay. Yeah. Now, if the business is doing so great at this time, Bassett, why is it that you've decided you'd like to sell it?
It's just more a personal thing, really. So I actually work full time in property. So that takes the vast of my time. So I do have other interests as well. I'm actually just looking into another business at the moment where I'm thinking of going full time into that. So I guess this is a case of just me taking some of the things off me, bringing in some money as well to invest.
Okay. That's pretty common for a lot of sellers that we have on our marketplace. They're looking to use this capital windfall and put it into another passion project that they have. So yeah, I completely understand that. Now, was there anything that you learned with this business, growing it over the years, that you plan on applying to other projects that you're currently working on?
I think mainly what I've kind of learned is more how to make things more efficient in terms of getting content up and just how things work in generally, especially around monetization as well. So just really honing in on what actually people want rather than what you want to create. So it's just going about things in a more focused manner just to make things more efficient.
Yeah, that's really important insight and really valuable information. It's not always what you feel necessary as what people might like, but it's what the actual.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to monetize things as well. It's more a case of, okay, this is what the market is paying as well. So just let's focus more on that and just give people what they actually want.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Now, was there anything with this business that you tried and it just didn't give you the ROI that you were expecting?
There's a few articles on there that didn't really take off. But I mean, the way I kind of look at it as well is, well, you kind of just have to put your toe in the water and see what actually sticks as well. Because there's some content on there which I didn't think would take off, but it took off very well. So you do get lucky sometimes. But then obviously, when I do a little bit of keyword research, it doesn't always factor in the fact that actually there's lots of keywords beyond what you thought would be the main keyword that actually bring quite a bit of traffic in as well.
Yeah, I completely understand. Now, where does the majority of your traffic come from then? Is most of it coming through organic search traffic?
Most of it's organic from Google, yes.
Okay. And then I noticed in your listing that you have almost 15% of that traffic coming in through social media. Are you doing a pretty hard push with the YouTube channel or other social media platforms?
Not at all, really. There is one thing I should mention on the Pinterest. I was basically writing articles and then I'd pin that article on Pinterest. Every now and again, I'd randomly go back and pin it. But I no longer have that Pinterest account. So that's actually one thing that is mentioned in the listing. So I just need to make that clear.
Are you doing anything else in terms of marketing for this business? Or have you tried, say, building an email list and gaining more traffic that way?
No, bear in mind, this is one of my first sites. So I was basically just doing the standard build content, do a little bit of social media and see if it took off. So basically, my whole thing was on-page optimization. So I've never really gone into email marketing, really trying to build a good social profile. So it was mainly on Google that I was more comfortable with. But I guess there is plenty of opportunity, I suspect. I mean, having leads and building an email list, I'm sure there's plenty of scope for that as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure our listeners that are looking at this listing can also see the potential in possibly trying that form of marketing, especially if they have that as a core skill as well. Now, hypothetically speaking, Bassett, if you were to keep this business, what are some of the ways that you would personally try and grow it?
There are plenty of content opportunities. If I was to really go full on to this, I'd really build out the recipe aspect, because particularly the products that we're in, there is plenty of opportunity and there's plenty of search traffic. And I've noticed there's a little bit of competition, but it isn't overly strong. And so in terms of on page, you can really get up there quite quickly.
Okay, yeah, it's really interesting to see. And I'm sure our listeners can also see the value in that growing in that realm itself as well, too. Now, could you describe some of the typical work that you're doing for this business on a weekly basis at this time?
It's actually very minimal. So if I look at it from a monthly perspective, literally spending an hour, maybe just tidying a few articles, but mainly it's just updating the site, making sure running relatively efficiently, updating plugins, that kind of thing. So on a general basis, there's not a lot of time being put in this at the moment.
Okay. Now, when you were producing content for this business, are you writing all of this content yourself or are you outsourcing it?
I was writing all the content myself. So I had this process in place.
Okay, perfect. Now, do you feel that there's any specific skill set that a buyer should have prior to acquiring this business? Or do you feel that most of the workload required for them to maintain the business can be learned over the process of the transition period?
Personally, I think this is as easy as it comes. So there isn't any particular skills. Obviously you need the basics of WordPress, etc. But again, this is not something that's particularly difficult. And even if you did need to outsource some aspects, it's not overly expensive either. So just in terms of from a beginner perspective, I think they should be relatively comfortable, I suspect.
Yeah, it's always really great to see. And you'll already have the established foundation for someone to come in. And if they did have a skill set in one area or another, like with email marketing, as we mentioned, they can definitely scale this business to its full potential. Now, what do you feel are maybe some of the potential risks associated with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
There's always the Google updates, etc., which all websites probably subject to. The contents on there is actually quite clean. I've never done any kind of link building that would put it at risk. So I'd personally be quite confident that there'd be no issues with Google. Even over the last couple of years, even with all their updates, nothing's ever happened detrimentally to the site anyway. So
Oh, yeah, it's really great to see. And also another opportunity for a buyer if they do have some experience with building up the backlink profile and building that out and maybe even doing some guest post campaigns through that route. That offers another great opportunity to grow the business even further. Now, Bassett, are you willing to commit to a non-compete, meaning any of your future businesses down the road, you'll stay out of this specific niche?
Yes, I've committed to that as well. So there's no issues around that.
Okay, perfect. And then how much support are you willing to offer potential buyers? Are you going with the typical 30 days of email and Skype support, or did you have something in addition that you would like to add on to that?
I have committed to the 30-day transition, but obviously if there's any other issues, I'm quite open anyway, so they're welcome to give me a call.
Yeah, it's really great to see. I'm sure our listeners and buyers that are out there looking at this business can also see the value and added support that you're willing to help them see the success in this business. Now, are you open to negotiating something like an earnout where you'll receive a large portion of the sales price up front and then smaller payments closing out the deal over the course of a few months after that? Personally,
I would prefer just to sell it and move on. And that's mainly down to other commitments I do have. But I mean, that's the ideal situation. But obviously, if something else is put in front of me, then we can be something to think about anyway.
Yeah, that's always something that, during the negotiation period, if it makes sense for both parties, it's something that can be discussed later on. Now, just a few sideline questions for you to wrap this up, Bassett. Was there any software or tools that really helped you at the start of running this business?
I did some initial keyword research, and that was through Hrefs. There's various tools I do use. I have used just to optimize articles like Market Muse, and I'm sure there's one or two others, so they're not really coming to mind right now. But there's nothing overly expensive or anything like that. Even with the Hrefs, I took it out for a month, and that was more than enough to do enough research for a lot of articles.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Hrefs has been one of the primary tools that I'm using on a daily basis as well. And Market Muse is something I haven't heard of yet, but I'm sure our listeners can gain some value in researching that as well too. Now, why do you think that this business model, as far as content sites are concerned, is great for those who are first getting started in online business?
I just think it's a very straightforward model, because if you're putting up good content, it's proven that people actually want to read and they do engage with. I think it's relatively straightforward, relatively low risk as well. So just in terms of the amount of time and cost it takes to actually put an article up, it's not exactly breaking the bank, and you're not really putting yourself at much risk if it doesn't really take off. So just in terms of the time and effort, I just think it's actually quite a good business model for most people.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. It's one of the business models that a lot of newcomers to the space end up starting out with, and always great to see that, you've kind of built that foundation for them to really take this business and scale it to its full potential as well too. Now, final question for you, Bassett. So putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you feel that your business is worth buying?
I think it's got a very good solid foundation. So for example, if I do put an article up, it does get picked up very quickly within Google. So there is some topic authority in that. So now the aging process of the site is now almost 3 years old now. I think it's just got the potential to really move on to the next level. So that's more with social media, more with email marketing, and actually even a variation in the content as well, just moving into other areas. So I think it's a nice solid site for the next person to really take on and put some time and effort into really build it out.
Absolutely. Even just looking at the metrics and seeing the numbers on your listing page here and seeing the growth trends, it's a really great opportunity for someone to come in and, as you had mentioned, have a foundation built already to build out even further. And that pretty much wraps up this call, Bassett. Was there anything else that you'd like to add that I might have missed?
No, that's absolutely great. But if there are any questions, obviously, I'm more than happy to address anything.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks again for jumping on the call with us today, and really awesome to see this business that you've created, and looking forward to seeing it getting sold here in the near future.
Lovely. That's great. Wonderful.
All right, everyone. So thanks for listening. To learn more and to see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 51074. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.